Hello everyone, we continue our videos about the Fethullahist terrorist organization and its dirty face. This week I will tell you about a terrorist who is in the red category on the Ministry of Interior's wanted terrorist list, Kansun Sarı Yıldız. Before we talk about Kansun Sarı Yıldız, the fugitive FETÖ executive, let us make our usual reminder. Don't forget to like our videos, subscribe to our channel, turn on your notifications for new videos, and share this video with your social media accounts so that our videos in which we explain the dirty face of the Fethullahist terrorist organization, the conspiracies in which the organization is involved, the leaders of the organization, and the betrayals of the organization reach more people. If you are ready. Let us start with the reason why we are telling about the fugitive FETÖ executive Kansun Sarı Yıldız, Serdar Atasoy, who was promoted to Tour General in the 2020-year-old age decrees, was appointed as the head of intelligence at the Land Forces Command. However, following the information note sent by the National Intelligence Organization to the Ministry of National Defense, he was first relieved of his inactive duty and then assigned as the 4th Corps commander. Shortly after resigning in January 2021, Serdar Atasoy was taken into custody along with 3 other generals who had also resigned. He was detained in the Fethullahist terrorist organization operation, and everything became hesitant. 5 years had passed since the July 15 coup attempt. A FETÖ operative was able to rise to the rank of Tour General and even to the position of head of Land Forces Intelligence. However, he was not appointed to that position. But he was still on active duty. Shortly after he resigned, he was detained. Serdar Atasoy became a confessor after he was detained. Because he confessed, he was released under the anti-terror law. When he denied his confessions in court, he was arrested again, and he is currently in prison as a convicted FETÖ member. Serdar Atasoy's confessions mention Kansun Sarı Yıldız, the Mahrem Imam who recruited him into the Gulenist terrorist organization and made him go up to the 5th floor of the FETÖ headquarters in Altunzade, where the Gulenist terrorist organization headquarters were located, to kiss the hand of the Gulenist terrorist organization head and to be promoted to the rank of lieutenant. And the name Kansun Sarı Yıldız has been on the agenda again since the year 2020. On the surface, Kansun Sarı Yıldız is a name that gives lectures on the YouTube channels of the Fethullahist terrorist organization and narrates the books of FETÖ's ringleader. However, according to the confession of a recently retired Tour General, Kansun Sarı Yıldız was the first Mahrem Imam who recruited him into FETÖ. So, is Kansun Sarı Yıldız's importance in the Fethullahist terrorist organization only because he served as a private imam to some military school students in the 1980s? It is not. Kansun Sarı Yıldız is known as the Bursa provincial imam of the Fethullahist terrorist organization. When Shahabettin Harput was appointed as the governor of Bursa in 2008, Kansun Sarı Yıldız was sent to Bursa Imamate by the Fethullahist terrorist organization. And she is known as the person who actually ruled Bursa during Shahabettin Harput's governorship of Bursa. What does Kansun Sarı Yıldız do in Bursa? First of all, she doubles the donations given to the organization by FETÖ member businessmen. In other words, businessmen who were members of the organization or businessmen who thought the organization was an educational movement at the time were forced to double the donations they gave to the organization following Kansun Sarı Yıldız's instructions. Kansun Sarı Yıldız put pressure on the businessmen who did not pay the doubled donations through insurance inspectors, tax inspectors, police officers, and police officers who were infiltrated into the state by the Fethullahist terrorist organization. Some of them closed their shops. It makes some businessmen sell their goods by making them pay huge fines and claiming that they have committed some irregularities. And Kansun Sarı Yıldız herself buys the goods they sell. She is ostensibly an administrator of the Fethullahist terrorist organization's college in Bursa. When you look at him, he is an educator and a person who would have been detained at that time. If he had been caught after December 17th and 25th, he would have been told that the school principal is also being detained. What is the school principal's fault? But he rules Bursa like a sultan. It is said that Kansun Sarı Yıldız scolded him when he was late for some events attended by the governor of Bursa and Shahabettin Harput. By whom? How do we learn this information? From the websites owned by Bursa's famous local journalist Nezir Asarolu. There are many news about what Kansun Sarı Yıldız was doing in the Fethullahist terrorist organization at that time. Some of them ensure the sale of medical centers, and she buys them on behalf of the organization. What FETÖ confessors say about Kansun Sarı Yıldız. In other words, after the 7 February MIT crisis ended, some of the powers of the specially authorized court started to be taken away. The first discussions with FETÖ started over the Der Shanes issue. Then, at the time of the 1725 wounded conspiracy, Kansun Sarı Yıldız was collecting nearly 500 million TL in patronage in Bursa. Kansun Sarı Yıldız set a target of 554 million TL for Bursa in the year 2013 in these dates, because she took the power of the Fethullahist terrorist organization into her hands and started to put pressure on businessmen through the personnel that her organization had infiltrated into the state. These are businessmen who are members of his organization, by the way, and he puts pressure on them to collect more himmet. And these figures I mentioned do not include state officials in Bursa. He only gives instructions to the businessmen and the executives of his organization on how much money to collect district by district, because he was the Sultan of Bursa at that time. He was so influential in Bursa that PKK ringleader Abdullah Ocalan allegedly visited him in İmralı prison. In other words, Kansun Sarı Yıldız met with PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan in İmralı prison on behalf of the Fethullahist terrorist organization, and people were included in the delegation to examine İmralı prison on the instructions of FETÖ, on the instructions of Kansun Sarı Yıldız. At that time, these people established a direct connection between the PKK and FETÖ. And Kansun Sarı Yıldız is said to have collected approximately $10 to $15 million with some of the patronage money she collected after the December 1725 conspiracy, because he was a man who carried $1 million in a minibus at that time. In other words, Kansun Sarı Yıldız, who always had several $1 million in his car, fled abroad with some of the himmet money he collected. A question like this can be asked here. My brother, there was a conspiracy on December 1725. Turkey is struggling with parallel state structuring. And how could the ruler of Bursa, who everyone knows, escape? There are actually many answers to this question. One of them is that the police officers in charge of monitoring Kansun Sarı Yıldız were members of the Fethullahist terrorist organization at the time. Or the information that Kansun Sarı Yıldız was to be monitored was conveyed to Kansun Sarı Yıldız personally by FETÖ police officers, FETÖ intelligence officers. Aren't there examples of this? There are. At that time, Necdet İçeli in Izmir was personally informed by the Security Intelligence Organization that security intelligence officers would be watching him. Because the FETÖ members had infiltrated my school and they were telling Necdet İçeli, Mr. Necdet Hocam, they are watching you and watch your actions accordingly. We also know Ismail Çingöz. Some of the police officers who were in charge of following Ismail Çingöz's car turned out to be FETÖ members, so they no longer followed Çingöz. He is one of the people at the head of FETÖ's Himmet organization. And he escaped from the police officers who were no longer following him and fled abroad. And let us remind this, we have passed the 1725 car conspiracy. Even after the July 15 coup attempt, there are people who made a fuss when FETÖ executives were arrested. And it is not as easy as it was thought at that time. I mean, everyone knows that Kansun Sarı Yıldız is the provincial imam of FETÖ in Bursa. However, somehow, thanks to the rescue of FETÖ police officers, she was able to go abroad. Currently, Kansun Sarı Yıldız is in the US and she is giving some talks on FETÖ channels. The members of the organization have this claim about her talks. When you listen to Kansun Sarı Yıldız for the first time, you say she is a great orator. You would say that he is a person with incredible knowledge and a wealth of information. However, the second and third time you listen to her, you think that she is repeating herself. By the fourth time you listen, you are sure that Kansun Sarı Yıldız talks about the same things to everyone everywhere. Indeed, when you look at his broadcasts on YouTube, he is a man who knows how to talk. He graduated from the Faculty of Theology. He has already worked as a teacher for a while. He was a school administrator. But when you watch her other videos, you see that Kansun Sarı Yıldız constantly repeats herself. This actually did not escape the attention of the members of the organization. But since she is the provincial imam of the organization in Bursa, and she is now one of the top cadres of the organization in the United States, there is no criticism against her. If you look at the members of the Fethullahist terrorist organization, they have never been involved in forbidden activities. However, the mere existence of Kansun Sarı Yıldız shows how much of a harami she is, how much she is involved in haram, because of the many businessmen she has brought down in Bursa. Let us summarize what we have told so far. Kansun Sarı Yıldız was the first private imam of Brigadier General Serdar Atasoy, who was appointed to the Land Forces Intelligence Directorate in 2020, but who asked for his retirement before taking up this position after being warned by MIT. When Kansu Sarı Yıldız was the provincial imam of Bursa within the Fethullahist terrorist organization, she was a person who collected patronage in a way to make even the members of the organization say illallah, forced businessmen who did not donate to the organization through inspectors and police officers who were members of the organization, set them up, bought their companies, and even met with PKK ringleader Abdullah Ocalan, who was imprisoned in İmralı prison in Bursa on behalf of FETÖ. He is in the red category on the Ministry of Interior's list of wanted terrorists. We will continue to explain the dirty face of the Fethullahist terrorist organization, the conspiracies the organization is involved in, and its fugitive executives to their private imams. To support us, don't forget to like our video, subscribe to our channel, turn on your notifications for new videos, and share this video on your social media accounts. Thank you for your support.